Alright, so strategy analysis will be new to you guys. Most people that come to the training, okay, not all, are not always focused on strategy analysis. It's not really their job. Their job is mostly to collect requirements based on a specific request that came to them, analyze it, and prepare a BRD, business requirement document, or some other specification document, BRS, business requirement specification. There are different names, and then they submit it to management, and management reviews and approves and such. And a lot of times you find that BAs are in low-level positions, okay? The way I see BAs is a more senior role, okay? And the only thing that would make you senior is you gotta like scratch the surface of what is considered senior activities, and some of the senior activities are strategy. Alright, so strategy analysis is about thinking big, right? Most organizations need that, but what they don't give it to you, the BA. They give it to their own senior managers. Finance people are dealing with this, CIOs, CEOs, CFOs, they make these decisions, see how much I owe, all these people, they make decisions. Only one person caught that joke. See how much I owe. It's not an official position, but they could open it for people. So the reason they don't do that is because the overall image of BAs is that that's a lower level one, right? But what if you're the one, instead of figuring out requirements for a small solution, small enhancement, were to think big as in, grand scale solutions, entry into a new market, introduction of a new product, introduction of a new product will be rolling out a new product. But what if you wanted to come up with some innovative solution, but you have no clue what it is? What if you wanted to enhance your performance in business? I think that's what you do, right? What if you wanted to escalate sounds bad, right? What if you wanted to elevate is the better word. What if you wanted to elevate your sales from a certain number to another number? What if you wanted to reach a specific segment of the market, right? So these things, they don't have a predefined solution, and management doesn't give you the product that you need to make, but what they give you is, we want this outcome. But they never come to a BA. They always speak to department heads. Who's to say that department heads are actually qualified for this? If I'm head of engineering, I probably know what I've learned as I went up in engineering. If I'm head of marketing, I probably know marketing. But it doesn't mean that I know business strategy. Well, in cases where the business client has a mission, they have a mission and a vision, right? The vision is where they see themselves in a few years, 2, 5, 10 years. The mission is what they do. For them to achieve the vision, they usually develop a plan. And that plan is a strategic plan. And most of the time, this strategic plan is done on an annual basis. On an annual basis, you find the top managers, they meet, they discuss with the department heads, they talk about weaknesses, strengths, and everything, and they decide that we need to do this. For example, if a new competitor has come in, there's a problem which applies to your industry because you're not government, retail or such, you could have a strong competitor who can actually, turn the tables against you because they're quite powerful. But when you're government, it's a little bit different. You're not worried about competition. You're more worried about internal weaknesses rather than anything else. Weaknesses, strengths, and so on, capabilities. So on an annual basis, organizations develop strategic plans, and these are plans. When we say plan, we mean plan. And the plan means there are things to be done, things to follow them, things that depend on them. You have your starting point now, you get to a certain point at the end. If I develop a strategic plan for this year that is part of a 2-year strategy, it means I have a 2-year plan to achieve my vision. That's what they usually think. So if my vision is 2 years out, I have a strategic plan for every year. All right? And that strategic plan, if it's not executed as expected, it's going to miss the mark for your vision. Okay? So that's the concept of strategic plan. Where do we come in as BAs?
Inputs.
Huh?
Inputs. Input for the solution of the requirement.
We are the ones who actually do it. What do you mean the input? That's where we come in?
No.
No. The input is business need.
It is a business need.
Yeah.
To apply the business strategy. The business.
The business need, yes. It comes in, the input is a business need. So they will give us a business need. I should use a different color. Business client will have a need or will have a problem because they would have done their strategic plan, and in it, they would have decided that they need to enter a new market, for example. And they're not really sure how to do that, but that's the need now. It's one piece of the total need. We need to enter Singapore, for example, or India. And they come to the BA, the way we see it, they should come to the BA and say, we need a solution that gets us into Singapore or India. All right? That's different from converting a place from a boiler room to a library, because the library is predefined product. We know what the product is. In this case, the product is not defined. They don't really know how they're going to enter Singapore. They could enter from the airport. It's a good idea. They can go by boat. Is there water in Singapore? So they can go by boat, right? So if they want to enter the Singapore market or India market, then they need a strategy. And that's why we have strategy analysis for the BA. The BA now needs to assess, and you'll see it on the next screen, this one, analyze my current state. So in our organization, how suited are we for entering into Singapore market? What capabilities do we have? What technology do we have? What's the manpower? What's our level of experience? How connected are we? How financially strong are we? All right? So once we figure all that out, then we can think of what is the best case scenario? What is the best possible future state that we can get? Can we dream big? Do we need to dream small? Should we limit what we're thinking? And so that's what happens here, is that we start to think based on the current state, what is the best possible future state? And so we say, analyze your current state because this is real and now. Whereas this one says define future state. Define. So that means it's up to you. You can calculate it, not calculate, but you can figure the pieces that are possible. And if you aim for them, then you develop a plan to get there, and that ends up being some sort of a change strategy, but it's not a strategy yet, because for you to go from a current state to a future state, you need to be very careful not to destroy things or harm what you already have for business, and so you evaluate the risks. Okay? What things could go wrong if we started to get into the Singapore market, for example? What could be affected? And there are many things that could be considered. There's a very good chance that your staff or your technical team becomes thinly spread, right? And maybe you could overextend your finances, or maybe you don't know the market in Singapore and you just expose yourself to a big competitor there who now starts to attack you from there, which weakens you because your management has to respond and deal with these issues when you didn't have them if you didn't go to Singapore. So a lot of times when you make strategic moves, you always have to evaluate what can go wrong with that, right? And if you know what could go wrong, and you figure what's the best way to deal with those risks, what could go wrong are the risks. If you can deal with them, we say mitigate, then we develop a strategy that mitigates the risks and takes us from the current state to the future state. That's what we call the change strategy. So in the material, you see this as a guide. a guideline, tool and guideline all the time. Why? In most cases, it defines who are your most important or most relevant stakeholders. In most instances, it tells you where your priorities are because you are at that stage in your business analysis. Analysis is trying to imagine what can be, what can happen. So it's thinking forward into the next 2 years, 5 years. Mind you, you as a BA are not going to be asked to develop the strategic plan for the organization. They can, but that's not what we're doing here. They would just ask you for one thing. We need to enter Singapore market, or we need to be able to sell to women. Maybe we're selling, I don't know, shoes. Maybe we're selling jewelry, but we feel we could sell more if we can target men also, not just women. Maybe we can also target jewelry for children. So how do we do that? All right? And you may have to figure different ways. Obviously, things come to mind that I can go online and sell jewelry, or I could have stores, different places, or I could co-brand, partner with somebody else. The options always exist. But which one are you most suited for? And which one creates the least risk for you? All right? So then that's when you have to look at my current state as an organization. What are the capabilities that really identify us, and where can we go from there? All right? So it's always going to start with the current state. I'm going to tell you a story. I like telling stories. And they say if you want to be a leader, you have to know how to tell stories. So I'm just going to tell you stories for the rest of the day. All right. When was the first time you heard about business analysis?
2009.
No. Okay, that's the date. Fine. Under what circumstances I meant? Was it an IT-related knowledge?
IT project.
IT project.
Yeah.
Then you learned about business analysis. Isaac, when was the first time?
2015.
Really more the scenario, what circumstances got you to know about business analysis?
Not 2015, 2011. 2011, I was moved into a new department. I was with
This marker just unscrewed, it's poor quality.
manager.
Okay, you were moved into?
Yeah, a new department. We were just two. He was then the project manager, and then there's this project that came in, and he just pushed it down on my neck.
Just like that.
Yeah, so I have to come out with the
Had your
requirements.
neck not been there, you would have been okay.
Requirements and things. So I have to go now onto the internet and I realize that.
What kind of project was this?
It started with the tax stamp, if I should say yes. We're then trying to define the requirement in the system that we're going to need, and it took us.
So that's an IT
An
project.
yes,
Mm.
IT project. So that was where I looked through the internet and I realized that there was something called the business
Analyst.
analysis. I have to now, go through it and look out for the requirements. So I went for training.
Okay.
in
All right.
IT.
So then basically it's IT that threw you in there.
IT.
All right. And you were in IT.
University.
University. They told you about business analysis.
Software engineer.
Software engineer. But it wasn't business analyst. It was software engineer.
Yes, how to get the requirement.
But they never called it business analysis, right?
Business.
Did they say business analysis?
Or system analysis.
System analysis?
Yes.
Okay.
System analysis
All right.
design.
So since I'm older than you guys, right? I heard about it differently, business analysis, and you would never believe where I heard about business analysis. It had nothing to do with IT. So a long, long time ago, I can't remember when, but I think before Noah's Ark actually happened. But it's really old,
It's quite a
right?
long time.
Yes, very long time. Yeah, we made sure we put one business analyst and one system analyst on the Ark to
Yeah.
save them, to
Yes.
save the profession.
They put mosquitoes on board.
Yes. Yeah, a male and female mosquito. You know, keep them away. Now they're trying to kill
But
them.
nothing happened.
But we did put a BA and a PM on the Ark just to save the profession, right? To make sure it carries through. But a long time ago, I was actually reading a magazine. Yes, back then we used to read magazines. These days it's ebooks.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was reading a magazine and there was a story of this dairy farmer. Dairy, milk, cheese, butter, goats, cows, sheep. Okay? A dairy farmer who raises these milk-related animals and uses the milk for his milk business. That's what he does for a living. And he's been selling to the community milk and cheese, you know, all made in that specific factory. And, you know, the old-fashioned way of the milkman, the bottle, and delivery. Maybe not in all countries, but that's how it used to be, like you see in the movies, right? This is based in the US, maybe in the Midwest. So anyways, over time, right, what happened is his business was doing really well in his local community, but at some point, his business started to feel some pain, right? So he gave it Panadol. No, his business started to feel pain and he realized that sales are dropping. And he wanted to figure out why sales are dropping. And, you know, he would talk to his factory, the people there. It's just it's a home business. And not really a home, but it's an organically grown business, you know, in the area, in the community. But he couldn't really pinpoint, but he had a feeling that it's just because the supermarkets have upgraded and now you're getting boxes of milk where we used to be delivering these to homes. Now there's competitors packaging cheese and yogurt and things like that, sour cream, making these with fancy labels, and you know they're taking good shelf space in the supermarket. So people are seeing them and they think it's fancy and they buy it. Nevertheless, his product is more organic, you know, made right there. It's the best of the best because they can actually see it. It's not going through a big factory and who knows what's in them, right? But still, it was affecting him, right? So his daughter goes to university, studies business. So he talked to his daughter, Ivanka Trump, no, I'm joking. No, he talked to his daughter and he says, I need your help. You know, you're going to university. Maybe it's time for the university to pay back some returns. I'm suffering in the business, as you know, and it's a family business, so she actually knows. She works with him, and she's like, yeah, I'm aware. And he's like, we need to do something, otherwise sooner or later we're gonna go out of business like this. If people start to slowly go to the other brands, then we're gonna suffer. So she suggested that she knows somebody in her class, a guy, maybe she just wanted to introduce him to her dad for other reasons. But she's like, I know this guy in my class, let's call him Eric. Oh, no relation to Eric Trump. Anyways, his name is Eric. I can bring him, you know, for lunch one day and talk, right? So she brought this guy. The dad was hesitant because he didn't want to bring this guy. He knew there could be something else. So he brought the guy anyways. They had lunch. And probably included lots of cheese and milk, you know, and pasta, so he can use his milk and cream. And so the guy sat there. He was actually very smart. He wore glasses. That makes him smart. So he wore glasses, and he started asking the business owner, this farmer, the dairy farmer, questions. Real good questions.
The
Like,
uncle was doing that.
yeah, he's a university guy.
Oh, okay.
Him and he's a friend or maybe classmate of his daughter. So the guy started asking questions. What do you sell? Okay, we know you sell milk and dairy. What exactly do you sell? And he listed them. Which one is your biggest seller? Where do you sell them? How do you sell them? How much are your sales? What's your target? What were you expecting? And then he said, do you have a sense for who's eating into your product? Yeah, it's competition. It's in the supermarket, right? Do you know what's the best aspect of what you produce? What is it that you stand out for? Okay? These are their strengths, right? So he was collecting that information. Then he asked him the cost basis. How much does it cost you for like a gallon of milk? How much do you sell it for? Is this profit margin acceptable? Do you go through other channels to actually sell the milk or cheese? How long are they good for? How long do they last? So he asked him lots of questions to understand the business model that this farmer uses. He wanted to know the ins and outs. He also asked him things like, How do you serve your customers? Do you have any customer support hotline? How's the relationship with your customers? And he's like, it's excellent. We are part of this community. And what I think really makes us stand out is that we have been in this community for very long. They know us. Every parent here knows us. They grew on our milk, for the longest time. And they believe and trust us in what we produce. Okay, so that's your strength, but you do have threat coming from out there. So what this BA, well, I wouldn't call him BA, but Eric did was the following. I'm going to show you quickly some of the things that he did, which are now included in the business analysis body of knowledge. He did a capability map for him. I'll explain this later. In the capability map, he mapped out all the capabilities that this farmer has in selling in the market, the milk and dairy. What capabilities he possesses. Manufacturing capability, financial capability, marketing capability. He tried to figure how strong he is in these. He also went and did what we call this business model canvas. This is old, they've been doing it for many years. He mapped out the business model that he does, including what partnerships, what activities, his cost structure, his margin, the revenue, where it comes from, his value proposition, like what is it that's so unique or special about your services, and his customer services, his segments that he's targeting, right? We will cover this in details. He did that. He also did a SWOT for him, right? And at the end of this, he made a recommendation for him, all right? Based on all what I see right now, based on your financial standing, based on your competition out there, which competition we see in the threats over there, but he also knows that this guy has certain strengths. His presence in the community is sufficient, considering he has a clean reputation, right? So then he developed a game plan. I can't remember the game plan, obviously, but I'm sure it included also, I believe, if I recall correctly, it was some sort of partnership. I can also produce for the other providers to offer partnerships with them because they were big and had lots of money, and therefore they usually tell you if you have a threat and it hits you in a weak spot financially. For example, you would be weak compared to the funded competition and so on, then usually the idea would be consider getting out of that market. But he wouldn't get out of this market because that's his livelihood. But the other way to do it would be to partner with them and deliver and maybe produce locally for them. But he also told them you could produce your own organic products, whereas the other ones can hardly claim it's organic when it has been produced with, what do you call it when they add to it to extend its life, shelf life? They have additives and preservatives and so on. He says yours wouldn't have it. People can come to you directly and buy by the kilogram. You can produce, you can sell them, even though they are boxed items. Now you see it in supermarkets, they will have the dairy section where it's fresh product. So you can sell the fresh product as compared to what they do, and you can maintain that market. But anyway, that was my first introduction to what business analysis is, because it described this guy as someone who's studying business. He was a classmate of his daughter, and he was analyzing the business. So he's a business analyst. That actually drew me in. I got interested in it. Later on, as it turns out, everybody's using business analysis in IT because that's where a lot of discovery exists. What's the best way to automate? What's the best way to speed up? What's the best way to, but mostly automate. They wanted to automate because that would reduce cost for them.